I'm going to tell you about the Dorr family history. That's what brings me here. About 300 years ago, Johann Jacob Dorr, born in the 1600s, moved from Babenhausen to Dieburg, and I'll skip a whole bunch of intermediate generations. You will be happy to hear. In 1847, a group of about 150 people emigrated from Dieburg to St. Louis. Reportedly, the group members were paid to emigrate. Things in Germanic Europe were rough in the latter 1840s. In this group were Peter Joseph Dorr, Adam and Anna Maria Wunderlich, and some of their adult children. Because the New Orleans passenger arrival lists for much of 1847 are missing, we don't know just which of their 12 children were in the group. One of the children, however, was Anna Maria Wunderlich, who was then 26. In Dieburg, Karen and I visited Adam's house, which he had built in 1810. From the appearance of that house, it seems that the Wunderlichs were not ones to be subsidized to leave town. So why did they leave? Did the older folks, Adam and Anna Maria, seek to take the care of their kids as they grew old? Probably not, because they had kids in Dieburg who were doing well enough to be able to stay behind. Did they want to be sure that Peter and Anna Maria married? It is known that she had a baby whose birth was not recorded in Dieburg, but whose death was recorded. Was that perhaps Peter's baby? Did Adam emigrate to assure a shotgun wedding? Well, Peter and Anna married and had a son 9 months later to the day. That son was Peter Joseph Jr. They had 9 additional offspring over the next 20 years. Among these were John Justin and Martin. Peter Jr. started out as an errand boy for a bank and worked his way up to bank president. John Justin was a letter carrier, an honorable job that I once held. Martin was a bakery foreman. These 3 married. Peter Jr.'s daughter was Marie, who married Ben Brinkman, a real promoter who built the late lamented St. Louis Arena and the bank building now conspicuous at Grand and Gravois in St. Louis. He made and lost a fortune and was building another. He owned Fountain Ferry Park in Louisville when, in December of 1942, he and a friend were killed in the explosion of his pleasure boat off Miami. His side of the family insisted the FBI came to their home and reported that the explosion was caused by a U-boat. Now, December 1842. Now, under the Freedom of Information law, the FBI reports having no such record. A website that showed the cruises of the U-boats didn't show one there that day. John Justin married Anna Cecilia, and their oldest of 4 offspring was Louis John. He designed a drive system for towboats and had a very successful business making them in St. Louis. It remains today the Louis J. Dorr Motor Works Company of St. Louis. My parents and Louis J. and his wife Marie Edna were close. Dad and Louis J. were first cousins. Martin married Bertha Zashevsky, daughter of Civil War Union Lieutenant Colonel Herman Zashevsky from Berlin. When training his men in the use of the bayonet, Herman was struck in the face. That injury slowed him only briefly, but led to many interesting claims records now in the National Archives. They had 4 offsprings, of whom only one lived past age 28. That one was Alfred. Al was a U.S. Internal Revenue agent who had 2 cases that went before the Supreme Court and won both. Of course, the lawyers claimed that they had done the winning. Ben and Marie had a son, Jerome, who only lived to age 24. He wed, but I've been unable to trace his wife. Louis John and his wife, Marie Edna, had 3 offspring, one of whom is the oldest relative here today, also Louis John. After 160 years, of all the Dorrs, only Lou and Rosemary and some of their descendants remain in St. Louis. Al married Amelia Wangler. They had 2 sons, The younger was Eugene, an Air Force officer who died last year at age 77, the same age as his father was. Gene left 5 sons, Dr. Steve, Mike, Tom, Greg, and Jim, 3 of whom are here today. I am the older son, a physicist retreaded as a metallurgist at the late lamented U.S. Bureau of Mines, but for 15 years mainly doing family history publishing, in print and on the web. Louis John here married Rosemary, also here, and they had 5 offspring, including an MD, a dentist, and a California investment banker. I married Vivian Bogle, who's here, and we have 5 daughters, one of whom, Peggy, is in heaven, and the other 4 of whom happen to be in the U.S. today, and indeed in this very room. They are Karen, Cheryl, Christine, and Teresa. Karen and Christine live in Colombia. Karen has 2 sons, John, an eBay power seller, and Fireball Tom, who's spoken to you here quite a bit today. Tom's wife, Melissa, and our first great-granddaughter, Maya, are here from San Diego. Cheryl and Rob have a daughter, Hannah, a student at the University of Iowa, and they're here from Cedar Rapids. Christine has a son, Nate, and 3 great-grandchildren in California, but they could not attend today. She also has a daughter, Maria, who has just smiled for you. Teresa and Tim have 3 sons, Andy, student at the University of California, Davis, Dan, a musician and new high school graduate, and Ted, who we expect to win a scholarship. They're all here from San Diego. 2.5 years ago, Martin Dorr died. He was my last older first cousin and the last of 2 on my father's side. Now I am, by 18 years, the oldest of the 9 first cousins, all on my mother's side. My daughters are therefore my contemporaries of my cousins. Anyway, I thank you all for coming.